Hi, and welcome to Archery Ops Podcast, brought to you by Gold Tip Arrows and Stinger Stabilizers. On each episode, we talk to top experts in archery and bow hunting about what it takes to shoot better and hunt better, target after target, hunt after hunt, shot after shot. I'm your host, Tim Gillingham. Let's roll. Okay, episode 4 of Arrow Ops brought to you by Gold Tip. We have a pretty exciting guest. I'm really excited to get to know our guest a little bit better. I've met him a little bit at trade shows, watched some of the stuff that he does. I'd like to introduce Pedro Ampuero. He's a Spanish bow hunter, does a lot of cool stuff, stuff that we all dream of, like hunting ibex and argali sheep. And, he just kind of goes out of his way to hunt some really cool adventure trips. Welcome, Pedro.
Thanks a lot for having me, Tim. I'm super excited about this that you are doing because you know that I've been a huge fan of yours. Every time I ask you for questions, you always reply and you solve my question, but typically you give me a couple more problems to think about.
Yeah.
So it's always great to talk to you.
Yeah, we're in the process trying to solve all those steep and deep cut stuff. I'm working with a couple guys. So Pedro is from Spain. He's a very renowned European bow hunter, does a lot of, correct me if I'm wrong. I just got off a roe deer hunt. That's pretty unique to the European arena. You do a lot of ibex hunting. I know he called me last year. He had a little bit of a glitch on was it an argali hunt? I get the Marco Polos and argalis mixed up.
Yeah. So a Marco Polo, it's basically an argali. It's a subspecies. So there is like a bunch of argali subspecies, and Marco Polo is the name of one. So it would be like
which one is the rarest one?
They are all pretty rare.
They're both pretty rare. Okay, well, I know
there is like a lot of argalis. Like there will be, I don't know how many subspecies, but they're like 8, for example.
Okay.
So it's not like
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so there's not like only 2.
That's
so they are very similar, but one is like more or less like the North American sheep. Right. So one argali is a little bit bigger, another a little bit wider. One is more brown, one is more white. They live in different countries, but basically it's the same animal.
Man, that's interesting. That's super interesting. It's like, I guess it's just outside of most of our pay grades. So, because those are pretty expensive trips, huh?
Yeah, it's pretty expensive adventures, and to try it with the bow, I don't know. We travel. So like we traveled last year to Kyrgyzstan to try to shoot a Marco Polo with the bow. It has been always a dream of mine. I thought I was ready. We worked really hard. So I spent 22 hunting days, I think it was. So long time. And you are hunting in the winter time. So like temperatures will be, I don't know. I always mess up with the Fahrenheit and degrees, but it was like minus 20 degrees below freezing. Oof. We are hunting at like 12,000 feet.
Wow.
So there's a lot of elevation, cold. The terrain is like super open. Guides don't know about bow hunting, so I don't know.
I sense that frustration when I was watching one of your videos hunting ibex, with your frustration with the guides. So we're going to get into that a little bit, but first let's just introduce Pedro Ampuero. How did you get into bow hunting? I see you in some of the videos with your father. I'm assuming he got you into hunting. And where did your love of actual bow hunting come from? Let our viewers, give us a little picture of who Pedro Ampuero is.
So I'm 35. I'm based in Spain, and my dad is a big hunter. He has been hunting all his life. He started he bought a bow and started bow hunting, but he had a pretty strong accident in the North Pole. Like he fell off the sled and the shoulder came out, and it took 2 days for the helicopter to make it there to recover him. So like the shoulder hasn't been good since then. So he just never actually hunted anything with the bow, but the bow was at home. And I started shooting the bow when I was 14, which in the United States, the bow hunting was really developed, but in Spain, it was like there were only like just a few guys. Like the internet was starting, like we will order arcabelas, the bow, so it was really
Sure.
complicated to learn. So it was like a slow learning curve. I remember that I spent like 1 year and a half with the handheld release grab on the wrong side. So instead of having like the stick like right here, I will use it like outside here
Yeah.
because I thought it was the right thing to do. And one guy
Sure.
told me like, why you doing like that? It's for any reason? Like, no, am I doing it wrong? So
Yeah.
we were like watching pictures of America to try to understand how things work. So yeah, it was a rough
Sure.
start, but I got super hooked with the bow, and since then I hunt with everything, with the rifle and shotgun and everything. But whenever I can, I try to hunt with the bow.
Yeah. I grew up, same kind of, we grew up hunting as kids. I mean, in the United States, there's a lot of people that, grew up as that was their primary, food source. I guess in Europe, they're more interested in 3D printing meat than actually harvesting it. So you see all this crazy stuff now, and you're like, what is wrong with people? It's like they
Yeah,
can't even accept their place on the food chain, right? And I remember growing up, we never bought meat. The meat that we harvested was always what we ate. And we hunted with rifles, but for me personally, it just got to the point where rifle hunting was just crazy, and bow hunting was like more hunting them in their natural element, and it was way more of a challenge. And I grew up in Wyoming, and I killed my first elk. I went to live in Alaska for 8 years, so and then I came back and I killed my first elk. I think, gosh, it must have been somewhere around late '90s, early 2000. I shot my first elk, and it was hard. I mean, it was difficult, but with every difficulty, it's just very gratifying. And I imagine, all those frustrations. I remember taking my wife hunting a couple times, and first couple times it was easy, right? And then, she had a little bit of, challenge, and you realize she didn't really like it as much as I did. And so, to me, that's what makes the good times good is the bad, right? I mean, it's always fun, these adventure hunts that test I would say they test your mettle, they test, and I think that's important for men.
I,
For men especially, I think it's important to, one of these hunts where we go to Alaska or you go to Kyrgyzstan or wherever, you're out there completely out of your element. And sometimes, you just have to learn how to survive, and, put one foot in front of the other and just keep it going. So, I know you've been named, but somebody told me you were named European Bow Hunter of the Year. Is that true, or I mean, but they
no,
featured you as
I'm not sure. So back then we started like promoting bow hunting because we were young
sure.
kids and we started filming and doing this and that, and until the point that I was able to work for Kuyu and I quit
Mhm.
my engineering job, and we
Oh,
also
okay.
started like a production company,
Okay,
and we
good.
have been producing videos for I don't know, for like a bunch of years, and we used to have a TV show. Now we do only YouTube, but we have been very active on producing and trying to promote bow hunting because in Europe it's a very special, like it's hunting. Anti-hunters are way stronger in Europe than in America, and
Right.
actually there is a lot of countries in Europe that bow hunting is illegal. So it's a slow process to try to
Yeah.
convince
I
people.
remember I remember Don Bowden from Croatia. He was saying that they had the president all of Croatia all on board to legalize bow hunting, and then like the president of the Archery Federation undermined them, and basically said it was unethical and blah blah blah. So yeah, and Sweden's been trying to legalize bow hunting for a while. They rifle hunt, but they don't.
Yes.
You know,
So the European Bow Hunting Federation is doing a great job. And in Spain, we are super lucky because we can bow hunt. There is no like barely no regulation in terms of like limits or whatever. So it's very easy to bow hunt. So we are extremely lucky.
okay,
But other countries are more complicated because we have to understand that some Central European countries, the goal of hunting is like conservation and management. So that's the goal. And what is like in Germany and Austria, like what is the most efficient way to control game? So rifles. So bow is not like in America that we see bow hunting as recreational, how we make it harder, how we give the animal more chances, how we are able to spend more time hunting. It's like, no, we are not supposed to have that much fun. We are here
Yeah.
to manage wildlife.
Right.
So for them,
Well,
it's really complicated to understand the bow and how powerful they are, and how, like, I have done a few seminars to trying to explain that actually the bows, the arrow goes through and that it kills different. So the fact that the animal runs 100 meters doesn't mean that it's suffering. So
right.
it's a slow process, but I think there is more and more people getting hooked into it. So
No, good. We sure appreciate any, all the help we can get there. It'd be nice to see that more at right now you really only have two or three strongholds of bow hunting. Like the U.S., you got Australia, and you got South Africa. That's pretty big in it. But other than that, I mean, I don't know that there's any really in the rest of the world any big places for bow hunting really. So
we have to understand that, like, as for outfitters and for locations to promote bow hunters and have bow hunters, it sucks because a bow hunter is just a nightmare. You have a guy with a rifle, it comes, he shoots the animal in 3 days, everyone is happy.
Yeah.
You bring a bow hunter and he's like,
oh man. Yeah, we had one of my friends won a Dall sheep hunt in a drawing up at the Utah Expo here a couple years ago, and the outfitter didn't want to take him bow hunting, and he's just like, well, screw you. He said, I'll give you the tag back. And the guy's like, no. They don't want their hunter success rates to look bad. It's just they commercialized it so much that it's not necessarily about hunting. Or I'll hear a story of a guy who gets a chance to go on a stone sheep hunt and doesn't even get an opportunity. And I made a comment on a post one time in this, that if I paid 50 grand to go on a stone sheep hunt, an outfitter didn't show me a legal sheep, there's one of two things wrong. Either they're giving out too many tags, or that outfitter sucks. But boy, they beat me up over that. But I mean, that's just my opinion. But it's just, yeah, that's kind of the culture. They want the easy dollar. It's easy to bring a rifle hunter in, close the deal, get paid, and move on to the next guy. And we bow hunt because we want the experience. We want the success and the failures, because at the end of the day, when we have success with failure, it means a lot more. So.
And anyone that is traveling internationally, the only advice I would give is just bring the bow. Like, because we are tempted, you spend a lot of money on a trip, and you are like, okay, I'm going to bring the bow, but just in case, I'm going to bring the rifle for the last few days. But as soon as that guy or that outfitter sees the rifle, he's like, oh, let's hike with this guy for a couple of days, and on the third day, he's going to grab the rifle.
Right. It'll happen.
And they're going to...
Yeah.
No, and they're going to force you, especially in Asia. They're going to be like, no, bring the rifle. And they're going to do things wrong to push you to bring the rifle. So when you show up on those trips and you only have a bow, it's like, yeah, I have 20 days of holidays to be with you guys. I like, they hate you, but at the end, they understand that that's how you like to do it. So I don't know.
Well, good. Let's get into, we've got several topics here. We want to talk about how to plan an adventure trip, like an ibex hunt, or, a trip to Spain, or a trip to, Kazakhstan or something, because that can be a very, big deal, for somebody from the United States. There's logistics to overcome. There's language barriers, cultural food. I mean, I seen one ibex hunt, you got pretty sick, and, how do you, first of all, how, when you start to think about planning something like an Argali hunt, or a Marco Polo, or even, I don't even know, like, I guess it's kind of the SCI crowd, right? All that stuff is a little bit fluent down there.
I think, like, as a Spaniard, like, since we don't have such wild places in Spain, I mean, like, we have beautiful hunts, but they are most like day hunts. So we are more used to exploring internationally, to travel to different countries. And especially, I love, like, the cultural and discovery of new things. And I love that. But I think it's important for anyone that is planning a hunt to kind of grow a little bit on your experience, because those hunts, there's some really cool things, but there's also a lot of frustration, because you get there and sometimes the guide has never bow hunted before. The terrain is really complicated. The animal, so don't start with a Marco Polo hunt. Let's start with Spain, which is a country that has mountain game, but has a lot of experience with bow hunters, has a lot of experience with guiding people. So you're going to get used to that and then start exploring, because some of the countries, I have been in so many places that I'm the first bow hunter ever, which it's cool, but it's way harder. So if you start with that, you may not enjoy it
So
as
basically,
much.
what you're saying is you need to be pretty like. So I'm sure there's a liaison, right? There's an outfitter or a booking agent that speaks your language or English or whatever that can really like relay this stuff down to. Because like I said, I watched a couple of your videos and I sensed the frustration where you were just trying to like, you go back here and let me do the hunting, and I just need you to. We a lot of us feel that way, like. I'd rather hunt by myself, right? You
Yeah,
get there.
I'd rather make the mistakes. If something goes wrong, I'd rather blame me
Yeah.
than going back home and saying, like, if I would have done the thing that I thought, like if something goes wrong, I want to blame me. I don't want to blame the guy.
Sure.
So
Yeah, you're up there bow hunting, the guy's puffing on a cigarette, and you're like, what? What are you doing, bro? I mean, it's like,
and they're picking over, like,
huh?
like picking over
Yeah.
skylines.
Yeah.
Like with bow hunting, it's so important to pick
Right.
over slowly,
Right.
wait. The animal needs, a lot of people, they don't understand that the animal needs to be broadside. So I
Right.
have got guides say like, shoot it. Like, I'm going to shoot it. I'm not an idiot, but it needs to be broadside. Cannot be facing away, but they're used to the rifle and they see it so close that,
Yeah.
you may shoot an animal at 80 yards and they will get back home, back to the camp, and they will say, no, Pedro missed at 30 meters. Like, no, it wasn't 30 meters. But I also missed at 30 meters, but like they are,
Yeah.
for them,
Well,
anything under 100 meters is super close.
to them guys, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so I always like to try to, I give them 1 or 2 days. It's like when you hunt with your dogs, that for opening day, you need to let the dogs run and have their hunt or whatever, so they relax. And after a couple of days, like, okay, now let me do how I like. And if I mess up, but as long as you show me the animals, and I know what I want to do. And I know, and some of those people think that they have a lot of experience, but their seasons are shorter. And some of those guys might have only hunted for a couple of seasons, so they don't have as much experience as we do, because we hunt a lot every year. We have been hunting for 20 years, like, so
Right.
they
Right.
think that everyone is like a really bad hunter.
So if somebody was wanting to do like an ibex hunt or an ergali or something like, what would your recommendation be? Would you have them say they probably should go to like SCI and talk to some outfitters, or is there a place they can go? For these, I call them those adventure hunts. Like one of my friends sent me a video from Australia they went up and hunted fallow deer in Bulgaria, and I thought, man,
Oh, yeah.
that looks super fun. And um,
Yeah, I have seen that video. It's
yeah,
unreal the amount of follow backs. And I wrote, because one of them is Ben Sayers, a friend of mine. And I was like, was that hunt fenced? Because like I cannot believe the amount of follow backs. He's like, no, free range. Like, it's nuts. Like,
I know it's crazy, but it's just like you always see that kind of stuff. But I'm only aware of it because, one of these guys I just posed some questions because they hunt a lot of fallow deer down there in Australia, and I've got several people on my staff that shoot them every year, and it just looks like a pretty cool animal to hunt. And but I wouldn't know where to start. I mean, where do you start? I mean, the internet probably connects a lot of people in that regard, but it's
yeah, I
hard.
think the internet, and there is like a few outfitters in America that are like they really know what they're doing. So I think connecting through the internet with the end outfitter from the country, it's risky, because you may get a better deal, but at the end, the hunting agencies in America, they're going to be able to transmit better your needs and expectations from the hunt.
Right. I think
Because
so, yeah.
it's not just about I want to shoot and collect a trophy. Like, it's also like how I want to collect that trophy.
Right.
Because some hunters are more like, I don't have time. I just want to go there, collect a trophy. And others is like, I want to live an adventure. and you have to transmit that to the hunting agency, because it's like if you guys come to Spain, I don't know, there's like 50 outfitters in Spain, and every outfitter, it's a little bit different. So the prices will be different, the type of adventure is different, the type of experience is different, so like it's important to, I think, to go through the agencies, because they actually add value. Some people, the only thing is like, no, they are only adding markup, but they add value because they can know exactly where to take you. And right. I think you increase a lot your chances.
I always tell, you're right. Experience is really critical there. I mean, I've been caribou hunting, I think 3 or 4 times. And, I've been put on a river, run a jet boat up a river and got stuck for 5 days and no caribou, and then flown into places kind of the same way. And so this last year we went up to Alaska, and my main thing that I tell people is this: if you're going to go caribou hunting with a bow, either drive the haul road so you have lots of ability to move around, or when you hire an outfitter, make sure they can move you around if it gets slow, because that's going to be key to your success. You only got 7 to 9 days. You may lose 3 of them to weather.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's good advice. You want to really, to our listeners, you really want to do some serious research. Don't take a lot for granted. Just because you watch somebody go, I watched one of your moose hunts that looked like a really good experience that you and your dad had, and you guys did a great job filming it. And I've been moose hunting 2 or 3 times. I lived in Alaska for 8 years, and I've literally only killed 1 moose. And we went up a couple years ago. We went up a couple years ago, 200 miles west of Fairbanks on a river, and it was nuts. There was people everywhere. And, it's just one of them things. There's no guarantees. They still call it hunting. And we did take 1 moose, but the rut was a little bit late. But it's just crazy the amount of people there, because, these guiding agencies or outfitters will just throw people on there. And these guys ended up on the same sandbar we were camped on. We had boats so that we could be mobile, and they were floating. Well, they were on this sandbar, but they're just a stark difference between outfitters, right? So our guy guided this river for the last 20 years, right? So he had gas stashed. He knew the terrain, he knew the routes, the alternate routes, and he's coming in, picking us up, flying us back out. And these guys are sitting here, and their guy won't come pick them up because he's scared to death, because he has to have bluebird weather to get from Fairbanks, pick them up, and all the way back. And so that's just another example of, asking the right questions. And a lot of times we don't really know what questions to ask. So,
yeah. So like, for example, when you mentioned the moose trip, that it went great, it was our second trip for the Yukon moose. Yeah. So the first trip we spent 15 days, I only saw 1 bull. So like we often see like the movies and the films, and you're like, oh, that's easy. And especially the moose, like when they come into the call, like, no, those animals are stupid. You just go into a river, you need just a few calls, and they come running.
Yeah, that's what the video shows, right?
Yeah. And we have to think the amount of people hunting moose every year. Like there is hundreds, or I don't know, thousands of people hunting moose all around North America. So out of those thousands, there is always every year 10 videos of the moose coming in. But there is a lot of people that they don't even see the moose.
Yeah, so elk's kind of the same way. It's like we hunted a lot of years as kids, and when I was a teenager, we hunted elk every year. I never killed one with a bow, right? And we got close a couple times, didn't know how to shot. Of course, that was pre-rangefinder, so we missed it. We probably missed a couple, or didn't take the shot simply because we did. It was a 50-yard and in game, right? Slow bows and guessing yardage, right? And but then you watch Primos and you think it's easy, right? But people don't understand. They're hunting on a private ranch where they don't have to deal with other people, and there's lots of high bull to cow ratio, and it's different. If you like, I drew a tag this year, and I'm going to try to film it a little bit myself, but I don't know. For me, the filming just takes the fun out of it for me. But I like the finished product. When I went with the Hamsky guys last year, they filmed our caribou hunt. It's pretty cool to watch in retrospect, and it's good memories, and good to share that with people, and kind of, incite that fervor for them to want to kind of go experience it also. So that's important. I'm glad you guys like you really go out to do that. I'm glad companies like Kuyu, you know, really get behind sponsoring that and then really.
Yeah, I think personally, like the self-filming is super hard. Like I think it takes you out of the experience, but if you bring the right cameraman that he's doing his stuff and you just worried on your thing,
Yeah, that's the real critical thing.
it's not as hard because like self-filming is like you are more focused on, do I have this setting the tripod, and it's like I really want to enjoy the hunt.
Right.
But I do also think that when you film the hunt, you actually, even for yourself, you can enjoy the moment better. Because I don't know you, but like a bunch of times when you shoot an animal, the animal goes away and like I don't even know what happened. Just I was so excited that everything happened so fast that I don't even know when I hit him, what happened. And you watch the video like, oh, I didn't saw that female, I didn't see this, and you know, like you can enjoy it
Right.
better. I think.
I get this question a lot. How important are my stabilizers? Well, stabilizers probably one of the most important things on my bow. Its job is to control the motion before, during, and after the shot. That helps us hold steady. It helps hold the bow still while the bow is loading and unloading from full draw to static. And it also controls the bow against our mistakes, so it makes it more forgiving. With Bee Stinger, you get a lightweight, high modulus bar with vibration dampening built into the bar. This is very critical in terms of getting the most out of your stabilization system. If you want to learn more, check out beestinger.com.
So how far out should somebody, like if you're going to like a place like Russia, or you're going to a place like, well, I guess Kyrgyzstan is kind of Russia, right? Or I really did.
No, it's so like, for example, for the Marco Polo, as an example, I really wanted to hunt a Marco Polo, and there are many subspecies and many places to hunt. And the reason I chose Kyrgyzstan is because you hunt Marco Polo out of tents and with horses. And the experience is way nicer than on Tajikistan that you hunt out of the car. So like same animal, two different countries, completely different experiences. Like I think like the tents and cabins and horses, is just completely different experience than hunting from the car and hiking out from the car. So that's why those agents are critical. And in order to plan the hunt, I don't think you need that much time in terms of like getting the tags and all that, because like the tag system, it's internationally, it's more like private. Outfitters own the tags and they can sell the tags, and they show always like availability that in the States is the nightmare. I wanted to hunt something in November, and they told me, now you're asking for November. It's impossible. Like you need to draw and you need to apply.
Yeah,
and you need...
it's tough. There's so many bow hunters, and it gets worse and worse. We used to hunt Idaho, and I'd go up there and buy a tag over the counter, and I go, if I killed one, I could go back and buy another one because they're left over. Now they sell out in 45 minutes, and you got it. It's crazy. The internet has hooked so many Eastern bow hunters up to Western bow hunting that there's really only a couple places left that exists, and it's just going to get worse and worse. So,
no, which is great, but the more people, the better for the sport and for everyone. But it's true that in America it's really hard. Internationally, you call me tomorrow, it's like I want to hunt in Spain. Is there anything available? We'll figure something out.
Sure.
In 48 hours. So
yeah, that's kind of the way like Mexico was when I hunted down there. You go down there and like, do I need a tag? And like, no, we get a certain amount of tags, and then the tags.
What did you hunt there?
I went down and hunt Coos whitetail.
Okay, cool.
So I may go down and hunt mule deer. I got a buddy. You know Ray Bunny?
No, I don't think
Ray Bunny was on a TV show with Jim Burnworth for a while.
Okay, yeah, I know Jim.
But Ray is a big hunter. He just got off of a muskox hunt, and he bought a little ranch down there and kind of helped another kid that inherited a ranch build this ranch up for bow hunting. And man, they got some slammer deer down there, big mule deer. Not a great coos property, but I killed two beautiful.
Okay.
I killed 122-inch coos there. It's just a stomp.
Nice. I went to hunt a coos deer and mule deer to Arizona.
Yeah.
And my buddy was so mad at me because I told him like, I want to shoot a mule deer. He's like, no. It's a deer tag. You shoot a coos deer first, and you will come back and you shoot a mule deer, but the coos deer is more important. And I was like, hey, I grew up watching Randy Ulmer. My dream will be to shoot a mule deer.
Yeah.
And I remember I sit down at a water hole one afternoon, and we had four or five different bucks of coos deer coming into the water hole at 30 meters. And he watched me from the distance passing every single coos deer back, waiting for a mule deer. They were like, one day you will realize the biggest mistake you have made by passing on the coos deer. But we finally got the mule deer and I was super stoked.
Yeah, it's kind of, it's funny, the coos deer, they're weird. They come in like the middle of the day, like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. So totally different probably than the mule deer, but you never really know. But I kind of got lucky. One of my first coos, it was actually my second coos deer hunt. My first, I was by myself and I was right on the Mexican border. And it was sketchy, to be honest with you. I mean, there's no doubt I was in the middle of a trafficking route. There was just, yeah. And I'm sleeping outside my truck in a cot like an idiot without a gun, and I'm like, yeah, that didn't last very long. But the second time I went down with another friend and we went out, I lucked out, man. First stock killed a beautiful 100-inch coos and
nice.
I'm kind of spoiled. So I've taken 3 with a bow now, and I know guys that are just renowned bow hunters. It took them 2 or 3 trips to kill one. So, but Mexico's a special place. I mean, it's just like any place, if you can go. I hunted with my buddy Yosity Perkins Killer up in Montana for elk a couple of years ago. I finally drew a tag, and we were hunting a ranch that butts up against public. And I mean, when you have that access to that type of property, the hunting's so much more awesome because you don't have to deal with everybody running them off. And if you're just careful, you can keep them on the property and not run them off. So, and I'm sure as you book hunts all over the world, it's different things. Like I'm going to Africa in December, and do you know who Steve Cobrine is?
Yeah, I know him well.
Yeah.
Are you hunting with him?
Well, I know Steve really well over the years. He shot our arrows, and I've had lots of really long conversations with him. He's a very technical guy.
Very technical, and it's the guy that has hunted Africa the most. I think like the number of species he has shot in Africa, it's ridiculous. And I think a lot of people have the idea of Africa, South Africa, and hunting in blinds and all that, but the crazy hunting opportunities that you have around Africa, I have been in some of those hunts that, like, people don't think Africa is hard, but like when you have to track an animal for days, tracking the tracks, it's like
he tells me stories, and all I'm thinking is, man, there's no helicopters or to pick me up when I run out of water. So, yeah, I mean, the stories. This guy's nuts, man. He's killed more SCI world records than anybody in history. And I think he told me one time he's killed 60 species with a bow that no other white guys kill. I'm like, but so I just had this idea that I wanted to hunt kudu. I want one time just to, sitting on a water hole. It's just kind of like whatever.
No, it's beautiful. Like to have animals so close and
it's not. It just doesn't. Those animals sat under the. I never mounted a single one. They didn't mean nothing to me, right? And so I just kind of pitched him the idea, and I didn't know what it would cost or anything. And he's like, I said, I want to do a spot and stalk, like you were talking, and he and I talked about in the past where, free range, kudu, Niowa. I always wanted to shoot a mountain reed buck. I had a chance at a mountain buck when I went to Africa the time before, and they reminded me so much of a coos deer. And super fast, man. I shot at one at 96 yards. He was peeing, and I thought, well, I asked the guy, do you think he'll jump me? I don't know. I said, well, he wasn't even close. Yeah, he wasn't even close to that arrow when it got there, right? So I always thought that's a cool animal in its natural element. And it didn't take him like 2 seconds. He said, yeah, I know the perfect guy. Let me make a phone call. So he hooked me up with his best friend, and it's kind of a friend of a friend deal. And so I'm going to take this guy over. He's my size. His friend's so Steve's tall like me too. He's probably about 6'6".
Yeah.
But we have a lot of conversations, but his buddy's 6'5" too. So I'm taking him over a new bow tech and kind of getting him lined out that way too. So we're going to have a good hunt. I'm excited. It's going to be in the old, Zulu country that you read about, today, and some old cattle ranches over there. So should be a fun hunt. I'm actually really excited about that. But yeah, there's 100 different ways to hunt Africa, like you said, and there's probably 10 different ways to hunt, Argali. But I'm with you. I like the experience. I try to book an adventure hunt, you know,
Yeah, and
every other
like
year at least.
I hunted a few years ago in Cameroon for Lord Derby eland, which is a different two species of eland,
Right.
which is completely different. Like you have like the whole neck, like black. It's like probably I think the most beautiful animal, one of the most beautiful animals in Africa, and the largest antelope actually from Africa. And that hunt, I was guided by a tracker that used to be a bow hunter, used to be a poacher and all that.
Oh,
And to see him track the animals, and for some reason, when he saw me with the bow, he was like, he was pretty old already, and he like, that's nice that someone brought the bow. Like he was super excited about guiding me and about teaching me and about showing me his arrows and all that. So it was super cool experience. And I remember you said like we shot the Lord Derby with the bow, and I was hugging my PH, like we just made history like this. I don't know how many Lord Derbys have been shot with the
yeah.
bow tracking and this and that, and the tracker comes to us and like, I don't want to ruin this moment, but I have shot 7 with my bow. Like, okay, thank you. Thank you.
Well,
Basically, let us enjoy this moment. Like we are super happy. Like, no, I just wanted to point that out.
yeah, that's funny. And people you get in these arguments with people about equipment for hunting, and it's always the African guy gets on. Well, African animals are different. And I'm thinking, dude, I shot my eland with a 440 grain arrow at 295 foot a second with a 2-blade rage, and he made it 40 yards. So I'm sorry, I don't buy that.
No, it's true that the African animals have the vitals a little bit more forward,
Sure.
and it's hard for, at least I find it really hard to restructure your brain to shoot like right on top of the leg rather than behind the leg.
Right.
So
I
like
find that
our
very,
deer,
yeah.
yeah, I find it like really hard to
Yeah, I
think about
shot
that.
that. I shot my warthog like that far up from the back of the leg and about that far back, and that sucker was alive for an hour. I'm like, how is that
Yeah,
possible?
because as soon as you are like a little bit back, you just hit the stomach. And it's like, how is it possible? Like it looked like a perfect shot, and for a whitetail
Yeah.
will be like perfect. It's gonna die right there, and they just don't bleed, and it's just because you just touched the stomach.
Yeah, Paige Pierce just got back and she was showing me videos where I'm like, oh, dude, that looks like a shoulder shot. It's like, but she's
Yeah,
zipping.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. But, well, that's cool. Let's just kind of move on a little bit. One of the things that you'd called me last year on your sheep hunt, and one of the things that people need to be aware of, and I made this recommendation to you also, was when you changing your environment. When I go to Alaska, one of the very first things that I require is I want to target in camp. Okay, bow hunting is different than rifle hunting. Rifle hunting, we can put all our data in a Kestrel. We can make the adjustments based on the barometric pressure. But with a bow, we don't have that option. So your options are this: you either get a lot closer so that the amount that you're off is not going to affect you as much, or you have to have the knowledge and expertise and the equipment to be able to make sure that your bow's dialed in. So what elevation do you live at in Spain?
Sea level.
Oh, sea level. So you go sea level to 12,000 feet. I can guarantee your sight tape is not even close.
Yeah.
So
So that's one of the things I think. Like when the more you start, and like with people like you that you teach and you make the right questions to people, you start understanding things, and it's not just bad luck sometimes because we blame the equipment and we think that the animal moved and not you were.
right.
So I was probably 5 years ago way happier person when I was going hunting than now, because now I know that everything
Yeah.
has an effect. I'm not
Yeah.
happy anymore because like I know that elevation, I found out that it makes a big change. The how do you call the mechanical broadheads? They fly great at 50 yards, but like when you go to 70, 80, 90, you have to start giving like extra meters to make sure that they
Yeah. That's one of
They
the
fly
reasons. That's one of the reasons I shoot this thorn broadhead. You see that? It
yeah,
just
you're super happy with that.
yeah, it eliminates a lot of them variables, you know, and it has this. I always look for practice systems. Okay, I'm actually going to play around with a little bit different thorn broadhead this year. It's more like your conventional, but it's still a rear deploy, but it just deploys a little bit different way. But I asked the guy, it's like, okay, like you said, ignorance is bliss, right? The less you know, the
Yeah.
less you. The problem is guys will go up and miss, and they don't even know why they missed. You know, they just like, well, I just missed, but they don't know. Maybe their rangefinder didn't read the slope correctly, didn't, you know, maybe their sight tape wasn't on. I hear this all the time, and guys are going to Kodiak Island or something. They never take a target. Okay, they never resight their bows in, and I'm like, how do you really seriously? And I remember one time we went to Kodiak Island, and I went out the first day. I checked my bow in Anchorage, right? And it was cold, and you assume that maybe the air density, and I was hitting about that low at 100 yards. But I thought, oh, okay, that's manageable. I don't need to worry about that. So we went hunting the day after we got there, right? And I can't remember if we can hunt the same day on Kodiak. Maybe you could. Either way, but the first day we were hunting, first deer, I missed him. And it was a long shot, but I normally don't miss those shots. But end of the day, I killed this buck, and I had actually shot another one right at dark, marked it, took off. So we were going to hunt back to this other buck. And in retrospect, what had happened is I had shot this buck at 100 yards. Okay. Almost exactly 100 yards and pinwheeled him. But what had happened is my bow, because of the air density, was hitting low, but the rangefinder wasn't cutting it enough. So the two yin yang, and I hammered him, right? So the next morning before we take off, I know something's wrong. I get a sound. I knew my spidey senses were screaming, right? And so I went out and I checked my bow, and they all treat me like the anal retentive pro, right? And I got it dialed in, and sure enough, man, I mean, I'm 20 or 30 to 100 on the 30-yard side of my tape. It was 4 yards wider, okay? And I just carry sight tapes with me, okay? And so I put the tape on, and Andrew from Hamsky was coming. And he always shoots pins, so he's only got pins out to 70 and shooting XT Hunter bigger arrows and, you know, fixed blade broadheads. You know, he's an engineer, of course, you know, and it's just baffling to me how he doesn't like get into the technology side of it. But I made him shoot an arrow before he left. He missed the whole target because he lives at 6,000 feet in Denver, right? So he had to get his pin sighted back in, and when he went back home, he said he had to put him right back where he's at. So that's, as a bow hunter, I think that's one of the very critical things. If you're going to go to hunt Marco Polos, or you're going to be taking long shots, you had better have a way to get your bow sighted in the terrain you're in. And I watch all these videos, and I see these guys warming up for their hunt with field points. It's on a bad target, and I'm like, dude, you can't do that.
Yeah, no, I have learned that on the hard way.
Yeah.
And often, like, you travel to these places, and like in Kyrgyzstan, like, we've built up a target, but to sight in a bow at 100 yards is not easy. Like, you need time. I mean, you are an excellent shot, but
You still need time.
Yeah, you still need time. Imagine like people that we are not professional, so we need more time, and it needs to be there needs not to be no wind, and you don't have to rush it, because at least for me, when you have to sight in 100, 110 or whatever, you need time, and sometimes it takes days, because some days you are not feeling great. You shoot the following day, and you fine tune it. So if you are playing with a box this small with some blankets that every time you miss, you break the arrow, like, it's really hard. And that day that you need to sight in, it's windy, and the horses are ready, and they are like, we need to move. It's like, so you start playing with, like with uncertainty, and then so you see the animal, and you know that you have to sight in 3 more yards, and then you have to compensate from the broadhead, and you have to take one off, and the angle, and this is like, I don't even know where to sight.
I mean, that's the hardest thing. I always tell people, with all my knowledge, I still find the most difficult thing hunting Western big game, and you're dealing with a 25, 30 degree slope, is knowing where to set your sight. Now,
Yep.
I will give credit where credit is due. The Leupold RX5 is probably the best rangefinder out there right now for that. It's still not 100% correct. Okay. It is not, it's not right. It's still off enough where you can make bad shots on animals. And so I've been trying to, put a little effort into working with a guy that, and try to get this in a platform that's very usable to the end bow hunter, because before I go on my elk hunt this year, it took me 16 years to draw. I guarantee you, I will have, if we don't figure this out, I will have spent 20 or 30 hours down on the mountain, dragging my target up and down and shooting these slopes in, because I want to know how to set my sight on those extreme shots. If I get one shot and it's 80 yards at 35-degree slope downhill, I want to know that I can make it. Okay. I don't want to guess that I can make it. I don't want to take a chance, because if you see on my board back here, it says preparation equals confidence. Okay.
100% agree.
And if you're going on a hunt like you did over there for Marco Polo, man, I would do everything in my power to make sure that outfitter knew I need a reliable target system. Maybe give them some ideas on how to build that target.
Yeah.
But
No, I think it's probably like, if I will have to do that now, I will prepare a little bit different in that thing.
Yeah, and maybe even pick your broadhead based on, which one flies most like a fill point. I mean, I've only found one. I'm assuming this broadhead right here, I'm just an assumption based on some experience, that this broadhead here, every time that I've shot a forward-facing blade like that, it seems like it's very efficient. Plus, you look at this thing's got a cone tip on it, right?
Yep.
It's more aerodynamic. If I shoot the standard thorn with this head on it, okay, it's got a lot more drag out on the front of that head. So if I take, I don't know if you're familiar with like a bear match point. They're kind of old, but they're basically a long field point, right? So I want to be able to tune my arrows with the same length point as I do my broadhead. But I also want a practice system, so that, like, I had to resight my bow in caribou hunting last year. So I had a foam target, but it was passing through it into the tundra, and it was just,
it's a nightmare.
Yeah, it's
And
a
also,
nightmare.
you need to have the right condition, which sometimes you don't have those 100 yards without elevation. And I think like many people, like, they don't understand that, because everyone teaches like about the compensated angle and that it's the bottom part what it affects. But when you're shooting long distances, the arrow is traveling this, so the drag is completely different than when they only travel 20 yards. If the arrow travels 100 yards, the drag is completely different. And if you change elevation, the 100-yard drag of that arrow is going to be completely different. So you're going to have to compensate different. So
and
then, like, sometimes you draw back and it's like, I don't even know. I can make technically the shot, but I don't know what yardage to put on my bow.
Yeah, I learned all this stuff training for, European Pro Series archery and OPA that's really steep and deep shooting. And I learned a lot of stuff for bow hunting. But the problem is, I have all this data on this.
Yeah, you sent me the data and I was like, I'm never going to understand that. Because you were like,
but the problem is in a hunting situation, it's not practical. It's not fast enough, right? So, when I bow hunt, what I do is I take that closest rangefinder that I can use and get the, Archer's Advantage system is a ballistic profile they put into the rangefinder, but it's a very rudimentary ballistic profile. So I'm working on a system where we can actually perfect that and allow you to shoot it in or do, true it up like we do a kestrel with rifle shooting. And that way we can, we don't have any guesswork going on. So, but then I'll carry a little arm guard cut chart that basically tells me in a percentage how far off it is at that approximate distance. So if it's 1 or 1.5% off, then it's still close enough to make the kill, right? So the further you go, the distance-wise, the steeper you go, the more problems you're going to have. But we better keep moving here. We're burning up time, but from a cultural standpoint and a food standpoint, when you go on these hunts, I mean, I I would think that could be a little bit of an issue. I remember getting sick at an archery tournament in Guadalajara because I decided to drink out of the Gatorade cooler. Yeah, that was a bad one, dude. If I was hunting, I'd have been down for the count, man. But
Yeah, so typically when I travel, I have never been concerned, and I actually never bring like a dry freeze meal or whatever. I like to experience the food and the culture. With water, I have never been worried at all about water until last year when I was hunting in the States. I saw all my buddies having like the little things to potabilize the water and all that. And I was like, why you guys even potabilize this? We're in the middle of nowhere. What's it? Just fresh water? Like, no, you have to be careful. And I was like, maybe I have to think about it. And I think it was like a few months ago. I had to do some checks because I wasn't feeling great after Kyrgyzstan. I mean, it was a lot of time, high altitude. Like, actually, one of my cameramans had a high altitude pulmonary edema or something that we have to bring it down. So it was a long extended hunt, and I think that wore me off. But my stomach wasn't great, and they checked, and I have something in my body that they cannot figure out, that it might go to the lungs and to the liver. And when the guys started saying, like, what do you mean? Like, I may have a parasite in my lungs. Like, yeah, but we cannot find them. We're like, oh, that sounds great. And actually the doctor was like, have you ever drink compromised water? Have you been in, what type of places do you go? What type of things do you eat? Like, just mark every single box because I have been everywhere in the last month.
Sucking down the ivermectin, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
so I'm trying to be more careful now.
Yeah, I always, whenever I have questions like that, I always go to experts. I go to guys like Aaron Snyder. I carry a little SteriPen. So I think that SteriPen uses ultraviolet, and it can, if you take the time to make sure your water bottle is sterilized, I think if I went to like Kyrgyzstan or, Steve Cobreen, he's crazy, dude. He said his next thing he wants to do is go to the Amazon. I was like, dude, have you ever read The Lost City of Z? I was like, you couldn't get me to go into that jungle. No way. But he loves that kind of stuff. He's got that quintessential, I call it the British explorer mentality. But yeah, I mean, I would want really good. I bought a really killer MSR filter. I got 2 or 3 filters here just as a backup for just, emergency stuff. If something were to happen, we didn't have water, we could at least purify it. But yeah, there's they call it beaver fever. Anytime there's beaver in the water, I mean, hell, we're drinking out of a lake last year and there's beaver splashing there, and thinking, I hope this thing works. Sheep are another thing. When you have, in the West, especially here, we got a lot of sheep herds out, and you got to be careful. I mean, it's my buddy. I remember one time he said, I just bellied down and drank my fill at this creek, and then I walked upstream and there's a dead cow laying right in the middle of it. I'm like, oh, dude. So yeah, you got to be careful with that stuff. But
but when you go to these places, like the water tastes like goat, the food tastes like goat, the tea, everything. So you just like. And I remember last time I posted a photo eating marmot, and a buddy of mine that is a vet is like, that the marmots are probably the animal with most disease in the world. They're like, fuck, it tastes like chicken. It tastes actually pretty good. But you have to be careful what you eat. But hopefully they find whatever they have.
The settlers ate a lot of prairie dogs, is what I'm saying, what I've heard. So, so now, do you carry some freeze dried stuff with you when you
No.
No, never.
Not for food. No. I just yeah. I like to experience the thing, like.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So
just be like
nothing you cannot kill with vodka in those places. So
that's why they drink vodka. It kills all the stuff.
One of my guys had a backpack, and I was all my day worrying about what the hell he brings in the backpack, and he just brought a vodka bottle with cups, not a jacket, just a vodka bottle. And we are like all the time changing layers, changing things, and now the jacket, and now this, and now this down jacket, and the guy just was bringing a backpack to carry that vodka bottle. So yeah,
it's like my father-in-law, my wife's from Argentina, and eventually I'm going to get to go hunt down there a little bit, but it's a little different too. But just like I've never seen him drink anything but wine, like ever. And I'm like, he can't possibly be drinking enough wine to hydrate, you know. But you know, it's just a different culture, you know, and yeah, you got to be prepared for a little bit of everything. Well, I really appreciate you coming on board, and I think, you know, we might be able to have you on a little bit later, and because this is just getting started, we like to keep it pretty topic oriented, so people can follow along, and you know, we can, as we see you kind of do some of your other hunts, maybe we can do another topic that's more specific on, you know, a type of hunt that somebody here in the States or around the world might want to go on. And like I said, I always try to go to the experts. And I mean, appreciate you taking the time to video and share the stuff that you do. You guys can, you know, see Pedro Ampuero. What is your YouTube channel?
Yeah, you put Pedro Hunting Adventures and on YouTube, and I have two channels, but one is in English with the main movies, and another one is more for Spanish to try to do some stuff in Spanish. But the main one is just Pedro Hunting Adventures.
Okay, and we'll get some stuff out, you know, some promotional materials so you can, you know, share this podcast, and you know, it'll help, you know, build your brand and, you know, help spread this information out. I think if our viewers will listen and subscribe to these podcasts, and you're going to pick up something, you know, you're going to have resources to go to, and you're going to have, you know, you're going to question yourself. You're going to say, well, maybe I should do that. Maybe I shouldn't do that. Maybe I shouldn't take that for granted, you know, and, you know, we can always learn more, you know. I'm sure the next time you go, you know, hunting Marco Polos, you're going to be a lot more prepared than the last time you did it. And
yeah, I'm not sure if I was happier not knowing anything and just having a little bit of luck, but yeah, no, I do think that people should definitely explore the opportunities abroad, especially on those years that people don't draw a tag. There is some hunting internationally that are not as expensive as some people may think. So, like, I don't know, for $5,000 or $6,000 or $3,000, it's a lot of money, but like, it's not like crazy. Like, it will be like hunting in Canada for most people or whatever.
Sure.
And I think it's cultural wise to know a new country, new species. And one of the things I love the most, like after traveling around, you hunt with so many people, and everyone hunts different, and you learn from everyone, and that's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, that's not there's most people that I know that live in Texas, you know, if they want to hunt, they got to pay $2,500 lease a year. So out west here, we're a little bit more blessed with a lot of public land, and you know, we could thank, you know, the founders and Teddy Roosevelt and some of the people in the past for really securing that, you know, for us. But hunting is a big lobby in the United States, and there's thousands and thousands and actually millions of people that actually pursue it every year. So thank you for coming on board with us, Pedro, and look forward to maybe talking to you in the future, and good luck on your hunts the rest of the year.
Yeah, thanks a lot for everything, and thanks a lot for helping so many of us get a little bit better.
I hope to continue to do it. I enjoy this. It's a lot of fun to interact with some different people, and I look forward to having some guests on that are experts in their field. I mean, I got a guy in Australia that's killed, I'm like 400 water buffalo with a bow. You think he knows a thing or two about penetration? So we're going to have him on. We'll talk a little bit about that. And, you know, there's a lot of perceptions, and there's also some alternative realities. So thanks again for, you know, coming on board. And I appreciate having you on one of our early episodes of Arrow Ops. And again, good luck the rest of the year.
Thank you.
Hey, before you go, there's a great way to get even more info and tips. Follow this podcast and check out Gold Tip on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Thanks for listening. And as always, start tough and stay true.